Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the day of the video. Darren has a good day. Today it is a Monday and we are being productive today. We're back on it. Since being on a holiday, I've been slacking big time because I've like had to catch up on things and things have just been arriving, like Sean came at the weekend and all that kind of stuff, and I've just been getting used to like going back to work and all that crap. But today I'm back on it again. This morning woke up at the normal time to go to work, which is a bit unnecessary because our shower doesn't work. So I had a bath last night, which was depressing as balls. I had a shower, didn't have a shower this morning, which is really hard to wake up when you don't have a shower in the morning. Like, that's how I like get up and I'm like, bam, I'll have some liquid sleep and then get on with my day. But no, so I had to get ready, go on into work without that. And then we've been quite unlucky recently. Like, the boiler has kind of been a bit broken, like the fuse keeps tripping, the shower's obviously broken, and then I drove into work today, and towards the latter end of the drive, the car started to like jump in like third and fourth gears. It would like judder, as if it was misfiring. That's what it kind of felt like. It felt like it was misfiring, but no warning lights came up on the dashboard or anything like that. So like I was driving it to work and I'm like, oh shit, like what are we gonna do? Like, I work full time now, both of us do. This is going to be a bastard to fix. I was going to ask like my boss, see how easy it would be to either set me up to work remotely or give me a laptop, or like how I could push flexi time to, but I'd be pushing it like beyond its limits to try and like basically take the car at 9 o'clock in the morning, get to work by bus for about like 10:30 or whatever, which is a bit late, and then leave late, or then try and get my time because then I've got to get the car back. Like, what if the car's ready that day? I have to go down and get it again. A whole matter of things. It was a bit stressful. Laura decided that like she's got more holiday than me, so was also going to look into her taking two half days basically, so that she can drop off the car, pick it back up again. Like, it is technically walking distance from her work, so it does kind of make sense. But obviously the opening times of the garage doesn't help that, and it's all a bit of a mess. But we drove it back home and it seems fine. So I don't know whether it was because it's cold. Now my theory is, maybe it wasn't jumping, maybe it wasn't juddering, maybe it was knocking. Which is like, if you've got petrol, petrol's designed to work in certain temperatures, so maybe the petrol was running and it was too cold, so the engine was knocking because it's summer petrol and it was cold enough to be kind of like for it to start knocking. I don't know, that's my latest theory because I've since put in the computer and it's got no errors, no warnings, no nothing. I drove back home from work fine, so I don't really know what's going on there. We'll see how it goes. We'll find out if it does it again tomorrow morning. Otherwise, work today was still generating categorization tests for this class, which is huge. I've got so many categorization tests at the moment, trying to get, I think I've just passed 60% code coverage, and it's like the further I get down, the messier it gets, because I'm trying to like massage the data so that I hit certain if statements in this massive validator, but then if I like tweak the data here, then I end up like running into this bit, and then it's a pain in the balls. It really is. And I'm trying to write the tests in a way that I can just copy and like use the same tests and just point it at my new implementation and it'll still work, rather than like write bespoke unit tests, which I then just have to rewrite for the new version. I've got no guaranteed, or well, no safety net saying that like this is a perfect re-implementation of this under these scenarios. So that's fun. It actually is fun, but it gets really irritating. Like the one I was doing lately, like I'd add something in and it would fail 6 validation tests, and I have to go through and figure out what all 6 are, tweak them all, and then it will fail 3 because it's hitting other things, and it's like literally trying to dress a cow in a dress and then shove it up a staircase. It's a bastard, it really is. And then maybe put it through an eye of a needle too. It's hard work. But yeah, otherwise we then drove home, car was fine, and I've just sorted out my daily vlog on Atlas, which is good, and I've got some things on my to-do list I need to hit off, but I'm also cooking dinner. Laura's on her way back, she's got bus problems, So, yes, I am otherwise cooking some rice. Because we're going shopping tonight. It's Monday night, it's shopping night. But yeah, I had to look at my to-do list, see what's going on. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the day of the video. What? No? I'm so used to not vlogging during the day. I've already started today's video. What are you talking about, Jimmy? How's it going? It's relatively late. It's nearly 12 o'clock. I'm about to head off to bed. It would be a lot later, but I have to get up early tomorrow because I've got to bus to work because my car is definitely juddering. We took it to Sainsburys, brought it back home fine from work, took it to Sainsburys, it juddered, and I think that's not something we should overlook. So we're taking it in. We figured out the best way of doing it. Laura is going to take it there and then go to work a little bit later, like half an hour later or whatever. I'm going to bus into work, get there early or earlier than normal, and then try and bus back, and then potentially be in a position to pick up the car if Laura isn't, or if it's ready before Laura is. So that is the plan of attack. So I'm getting on a bus at 7 in the morning, and I should, in theory, it also means I avoid traffic. Should in theory mean I can get to work at about 7:30, means I can leave work at about 4, and I can leave earlier, I can avoid having lunch if I think the car's going to be ready sooner. It's going to be a ball ache, but that's life. We figured out that this is, me busing is like the least painful way of doing it. So yeah, that's the plan. Otherwise though, ladies and gentlemen, we had dinner, wrote the shopping list, went shopping. Fucking supermarket, Asda at least, Sainsburys wasn't, Asda was rammed fucking students, so it was really busy. Well, the reason we shop on a Monday is, one, because we don't like shopping on the weekend because it takes up too much time, and two, because no one shops on a Monday, and now everyone's shopping on a Monday, god damn. So there was that, but then we went to Sainsburys, came back, put the shopping away, did the bins, started watching Louis Theroux from Sunday, the one about Jimmy Savile, which was really, really interesting, but Laura was falling asleep because she got like a bit of a headache and stuff. She's been working hard. So we finished it early. Laura went to bed at like 10:15, and I've been working since then on my project. I've been like forcing my way through. I'm looking forward to tomorrow being able to, it's been a long time since I bussed into work on a quiet bus. I'm hoping it's quiet. So I'm going to look forward to being able to just crack open a laptop or Kindle. I'm going to try and take my laptop and try and do some work on the bus. If I can't, then I've got my Kindle and I'll read. But yeah, I've been working on, I've been like setting up the infrastructure for this left leg of the system. So it's going well. It's basically copying what I did last time. There's some slight changes because the configuration files are now JSON files, not XML files. Which brings together different things. It means that there's like different things are in the files and how the objects. Figuring out how to do, and I've decided it's best just to put it in a different file, its own specific config file. Like if I was to use different compilers, but different compilers have different settings, where would those settings go and how do I define them? Do I define them generically in one file and try and have a generic settings? Probably not. Or do I have more specific ones? If I have more specific ones, then how does the JSON know whether or not it's supposed to be there? How does the code know whether this is supposed to be there or not? Should I check them? Should I check each one in turn if it's null or something like that? Which brings me on to another thing. Today at work we uncovered a piece of code, myself and Tom, uncovered a chunk of code which was interesting. We are both, he's a C++ developer, I'm a C# developer, we're both developing in Java at work. We saw something, or he saw something, which looked like Java's attempt to copy optional parameters. So in C# and C++, you can define an optional parameter on a method. So if you were to say have, for example, I have some methods where I don't actually have to give what I've done it with overloading though. Instead of having overloading, what you can essentially do is you can say, right, this method accepts 2 parameters. But if you only have the first parameter, then I'll default the second parameter. So you can say something like string path to file equals, so your method would be something along the lines of, say, load app settings, takes a string, the default answer, you would go string path equals, and then you'd give the default answer in the parameter, and then if the caller passed a string, that string would be that parameter, else this other one would be. So in this code, someone was using a Java optional class in order to basically provide that functionality. And it looked dirty, and it probably was dirty. But then we discovered this optional class, and I've never seen it in use before. And we talked to someone like a contractor there whose job it is basically. He's like a Java expert or whatever. And he's very much in on functional programming and all that kind of stuff. And his like arguments for whether or not this is a good thing, and he thinks it's a good thing, I don't really understand them. There's an argument that if a method returns an object or a class, then like it shouldn't ever return null, which is understandable, right? Unless there's a good reason to. So instead of having a class that like you return null and you have to essentially check whether or not it's null, what you should do is have it return an optional class instead, which forces the developer to then check whether or not the value is. In my scenario where you say get a file, here's the worlds, right? If it says like get a file, you pass it a path. If the file doesn't exist in C# because there isn't this optional thing unless you write one yourself, you would either have to return null or throw an exception. And then it'll be on the onus will be on the next thing whether or not that checks null, otherwise it'll get a null pointer exception. In Java, you essentially have the ability to return an optional class which has a generic type of file, and then you inherently go, is it present? If it isn't present, then return this thing instead. So at that point you can say, okay, if it's not, it's like, I think link has a couple of things which is like first or default, and then you can define the default in the method if there isn't one in there. I take issue with this because people have said that like what you can do is essentially chain method calls. So you can say, oh, this does this, this does this, it's in a functional style, this does this, this does this, this does this, this does this, this at the end. By using optional, it doesn't matter if any of the single ones along the way are actually null, because then the whole thing will just become null. So you haven't thrown an exception. And you just end up with null at the end, or a default value, and it's all fine. Whereas I would prefer just to throw the exception. Like if in the scenario where I do a search on a database, or I do a search through a dictionary or a map of some kind, and I don't find a result, I throw an exception. I don't return null, unless because there's a chance that I might map to null, there's a chance that whatever. So I throw an exception. Yeah. Or if I was to return a list of results, I would return an empty list of results, because there were no results. And then the reader must go thinking. The thing with having this optional thing is, it seems like it just kind of hides, it like quietly hides the fact that something broke. I prefer just knowing that something broke. If something broke, then I want to throw an exception. I want something to happen. I don't want that to carry on. And that's why I don't seem to like this optional thing. I don't understand it as a concept. Very much a functional thing, and obviously I'm thinking of this as a OO semi-procedural kind of way of thinking about it. But like, either null and throwing exceptions is better. I just think the optional thing is just a code smell. Like, there is a mild advantage to being able to go first or default on something. In which case, should every single thing I return be an optional class that has the generic type of the thing I want to return? No. Is it necessary that I understand the point that like it kind of forces developers to check whether or not it's null. Because it's very easy to go, well, it's never going to be null, and then sometimes it is null. In the scenario of my project, where I have complete control over absolutely everything, if anything breaks at any given point, it throws an exception, and then I deal with that at catching points. If something bad happens, like I can't get something, and I want to return null, like if something bad happens and I can't recover from it, I throw an exception, and the user interface deals with it. And tells the user, tells someone to fix it. If something happens that, like, can happen, like I do a search and I don't find anything, so I return an empty list of results, or I return empty strings, or things like that, I then check in the things that call it whether or not that's a thing. So I go, oh, is this thing null, or is this thing string.empty, or is this thing 0? Is it like, well no, integers are a bad example because integers aren't nullable. I don't under the concept, it just seems like a less clear way most of the time to just say, is this null or not? And I think it's because I steer more heavily on the side of throw an exception and deal with it, rather than try and hide it. I like programs, I like writing programs that fail fast. I think that's what it is, fail fast or fail quietly. Like if, say that on that thing where you have like a chain of them and it doesn't really matter if any of them are null. Like there's, I think question mark full stop will basically say, hey, if this isn't null, do this. In C#. Don't know why you'd do that ever. Because if it isn't null, it's null for a reason. At some point you're going to have to check whether it's null, otherwise you're just going to display something that's not right to a user, right? So at some point you've got to do the check. You may as well do the check as early in the line as possible, and then as soon as you do the check, you either do something else, like get a default value, or throw an exception. And I prefer that to hiding the chain of the thing. I hope that makes sense. A little ramble there. But yeah, it's like I couldn't understand the concept. I can't think of a scenario where I would use it. Because it's in Link, I think there's things like first or default, which essentially gets the first hit or a default value. I think that's like one of the only reasons to use it, but I mean, like if I do dot first, would I expect that to throw an exception? I would expect that to throw an exception. So yeah, I guess it's a bit like a try pass. But then yeah, I do things like a try pass instead of this optional thing. I go, oh, try pass. Oh, can you not do it? Okay, false. Don't do it then. Rather than do it, if you get a null pointer exception, essentially do a try catch on it, essentially, and then don't do it. Seems strange to me. Seems ugly, seems messy, and having optional tags everywhere is a code smell, and 90% of the time isn't necessary. It seems a bit like an anti-pattern. But either way, that's that. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, up early, we're going on the bus to work, coming back early, hopefully, depending on how slow the bus is. I normally leave at 7:30, so I'm hoping to get there at like just before normal timing. I don't think it's that much slower on the bus. According to the timetable, at the very least, it's not. So, we'll see. I don't see many buses though when I'm up there. There aren't many buses. I'll get the bus at 7 o'clock, like I say. And I think that's going out. I'm going to be out like early for it, so I'm going to get up at 5:45. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow, like I say, lots of work. Should be able to get lots of work done on the bus, which is going to be good. I'll catch you later.